Terry has an average of 89 after he took 8 quizzes. If he wants to push his grade up to an A minus, what is the minimum score that he needs on his next quiz to reach his goal? And remember, an A minus is a 90%, a 90 average. So on this one, just remember that 89, if you're going to push that average up, you need to get higher than an 89 on your next quiz. That's just the way averages work. Your average isn't going to get higher unless your data points get higher. So if your next quiz score is less than an 89, then your average is actually going to go down. There's no way that you can raise it to a 90%. So I'm going to look at a bunch of different ways. The first way I think is the way that maybe makes the most sense in terms of your problem skills and where they are right now. This one, it says to do guess and check. This is our first way. So I'm going to create a template for myself, and you'll see here I've created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then a 9th space. Reason for that, he took 8 quizzes. He took 8 quizzes, it's right there. And then he also is going to take another quiz. His next quiz will make it 9 quizzes. That's why I made 9 spaces. So what did he get on these 8 quizzes? We don't know exactly, but we can make the assumption, since he has an 89 average, that these average out, the first 8 of them, to an 89. So I'm going to just put a number 89 in each box here. Doesn't mean he necessarily got that, but in the end it won't matter in the problem, because we're just trying to figure out, what will get him to a 90 average. And the fact is that these first 8 scores, they have to average out to 89. So if I give him nothing but 89s, it will average out to 89. Alright, so at this point we know what 8 of his scores are. We don't know what this 9 score is. You could give it a variable, a question mark, whatever. What I'm going to do is add up the scores that he has. I could do 89 and add it 8 times. I'm just going to do 89 times 8 though. I think it's quicker. So 89 times 8, that gives us 712. And what we want to have happen is for him to have a score of 90 after 9 quizzes. So if we do this out, that equals 810. Now 810 represents the total number of points he has. Pause the video and see if you can figure out what his quiz score would be. Alright, so 810 is how many points he needs for a 90. 712 is how many points he had for an 89 after 8 quizzes. So on that 9th quiz, what you do is just subtract these two numbers here, and you would end up with a 98 for that 9th quiz. So that's just one way to do it. Here's another way. You could use a one-step equation. What I mean by one step is that there's one operation. So we know his average was an 89. So we could say it equals 89. And we know to find an average, you add numbers and then divide by how many numbers there are. So we're going to divide. We don't know what those numbers added up are, but we know we're going to divide by 8 since he took 8 quizzes to get an 89. And the same thing over here. We don't know what the numbers add up to, but we know we're going to divide again, and this time by 9, to get his average where he wants it to be at a 90. By solving these two equations, you will figure out what x is, and x represents the total number of points he needs. So we'd solve the equations by multiplying the inverse of division to both sides of the equation. So times 8 here, and then times 9 on both sides of this equation. Alright, so after 8 quizzes he had 712 total points. After 9 quizzes, if he wanted a 90 average, he would need 810 total points. And again, just like we did when we did guess and check, you could do 810 minus 712, and you'll get that answer of 98 again. We didn't need the template this time. Here's a third way, a two-step equation. So in order to find an average, you add up numbers and then divide by how many numbers there are. So we know we want an average of a 90 here. And we know to get that, we need to divide by 9, because there's going to be 9 quiz scores. Now, what we added, though, is the issue. So we could say we added 89 plus 89 plus 89, or just 89 times 8, plus x, or some variable, whatever variable you want. And let me explain this part of it. So we have parentheses here, and the reason for that is that when you find an average or you find a mean, you add before you divide. So remember, with order of operations, you need parentheses at the beginning of the problem. The 89 times 8 part of this comes because We know he had the 89 average after 8 quizzes, so we can assume that 89 times 8 will find us the total points. And we had X because that represents the 9th quiz, what we're trying to figure out here that will get him the 90 average. So in order to solve this, I would actually do kind of things a little bit backwards here because we're solving an equation. But I would multiply by 9 on both sides, and then we know how many points he needs, which is 810. And we would have this equation. We can now get rid of the parentheses since this division sign's gone. And we have 89 times 8 plus x, and we could do out 89 times 8. I know by now actually that it's 712 because I've already done this problem twice, right? Once and twice. But, you know, if you wanted to do the math out, you could do the math out. So 89 times 8 is 712. And we're adding that with x. So 712 plus some number, we're calling it x, equals 810. And if you do the inverse operation of addition, which is subtraction, you subtract 712 from both sides here. Those cancel. We do 712 over here. We subtract that. X is going to equal, your missing score is going to be 98. So again, the minimum score you need is a 98. And then one final way we could work backwards here. You could just say to yourself, well, rather than do all that equation stuff, that's confusing to you. I know that I need 90 times 9 quizzes, and I need 810 points, and I already have 89 times 8 points. So how many more points do I need in order to get to the 810? Well, I need, as it turns out, the difference between 810 and 712, which is, again, 98. Now, you might have said, well, 99 is a good answer then. You could get a 99 and have an A minus, or 100 and have an A minus, and you'd be right. Problem is, the question's asking for the minimum score, minimum meaning the lowest possible score, which is 98. Yes, you could also get a 99 and a 100, and I hope that's what you shoot for, but the minimum score would be a 98.